Surprise Ninja entry!
What's up, guys? Yo, yo, yo. I said we're back and we're back. It's me again, Henry. So today we're up to episode 9, which is part 2 of the Ninjury series we're running. So episode 9 of How to Be More Ninja, Ninjury part 2. Today we're all about recovering from an injury, right? So you've had the accident, unfortunate, or you've hurt yourself, unfortunate, you're feeling a bit down. Don't fear, follow my advice, you will be fine. Okay, the first thing you want to do, before we go on, let me just tell you now, I'm not a doctor. This is just from my experience and what I've learned from my research. Don't take my word as gospel. Go and see your own doctor. First thing you want to do is go and see a doctor. They'll tell you the right things to do. This is just advice from me, and this is just me speaking from experience. So, first thing you want to do when you're injured is follow the RICE principle. I'm sure you've heard that. Rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Okay, so whatever you've done, whether it's your ankle, your knee, your hip, your arms, whatever, the first thing you need to do is rest it. Take the load off it. Don't aggravate the injury. You don't want the injury getting any worse. You want to give it a chance to recover. So rest it, take a load off it, whether that's like putting your leg up, staying off your feet, or not hanging up on the monkey bars, not doing the salmon ladder when you're torn your shoulder. Rest it, let it recover. Second one, ice. People don't like it, but ice is brilliant for you. Accelerates injury, accelerates injury recovery, reduces the pain, reduces the swelling. It's so important. It's all about flushing out all the bad crap that's in the joint that your body pumps in when in response to an injury. So ice it. Get a bag of peas. If you haven't got any ice, a bag of peas does the same job. Stick it on your knee, wrap a towel around it. Carrots are also a possibility, but anything frozen. If you've got one of these ice packs that you put the ice in, they're brilliant. If you haven't got one, go online, look on Amazon. Other online retailers are available, but you can buy these gel packs that you put in the freezer. They're reusable ice packs. They are absolutely amazing. I've got one, I use it all the time. All you do, you stick it in the freezer for a couple of hours and it comes out ice cold. It holds its cold for a while and it doesn't melt, leaving a whole load of water everywhere or crap peas that no one wants to eat. So use one of them, and they usually come with a strap. So if you can get one that comes with a strap, you put it in a little sleeve and then you wrap it around the injured area, leave it on there 10 to 15 minutes every few hours, every 2 to 3 hours. Stick with that for the first, I'd say, a week after the injury. Give yourself the best chance to heal, let it recover. It gets the swelling down, as I say, it gets the swelling down, reduces the pain, and it helps you back on the road to recovery much quicker. Next up, where are we? IC is compression, alright? Compression, get yourself a tuber grip or strapping, wrap around the joint. It helps first of all, it helps immobilize the area of injury. Like, you don't want to move it too much and cause injury, so strapping it helps reduce that risk. And also compressing it squeezes down and helps reduce the swelling as well, which is very important. I keep on grabbing my knee. Is this knee that's injured? But never mind. Anyway, it could be anything that's injured, but all these principles work on everything. The next one is elevation. Remember all that crap that I said that gathers in the area of the injury when you're injured? You need to get that away from the site of the injury and back to your heart. So elevation is the best way to do it. You've done your leg in. Sorry. Technical error, forgive me. All right, stick your leg up. All the blood, gravity helps it rush back towards your heart. All right, elevate it, speed up recovery, and also you're taking the weight off it and giving it a chance to recover by itself. So remember, rest, ice, compression, elevation. Do all of those immediately after you've suffered an injury. Help yourself get back on your feet and back to full fitness quickly, all right? So that's the basics. After your injury's recovered enough that you can move it around, you need to get the mobility back into it. So do exercises. This is very general. I'm not going to go into specifics of what to do with what injury, but you need to start increasing the range of motion in it. So a lot of the time when you're injured, you think you just need to stop and do nothing, right? That's a bad idea. You need to do something. Otherwise, when it does recover, you find that you have limited capacity in it, that you're not able to use it as well as you could before, and it takes you even longer to get back into whatever you love, whatever it is you're doing. In our case, ninja antics. So keep moving it. Try, once it doesn't hurt too much to do it, try and get, say for an example, the wrist, try and get mobility back around into the range, get the flexibility back into it. Same thing with ankles, knees, shoulders. Keep working the range of motion. Once you can work the full range of motion, you want to start building some strength back into it. So use things like elastics, so remember that elastic band I showed you in the last video? They're great. So for example, for the arm, say you've done a shoulder injury, once it's recovered, you can tie it onto a bedpost or something and work in the range, building the muscles back around it. So not only are you strengthening the area that you're injured and helping it recover and get back to what it was before the injury, you're also preventing further injury by strengthening the muscles around it and helping your body to support itself. Next up, where's my ball? There it is. This is an instrument of pain, but it is also very, very, very good for you. So foam roller as well. I've got one over there, I can't be asked to go and get it. But this trigger point massage, so you know people pay loads of money to go and get a deep tissue massage. This thing does the same. Once the injury's healed and it's not painful anymore to put pressure on the joint, you probably find that it's very tense and all the muscles around it are very tense. You need to massage that tension out. Helps the muscle, it helps you regain your range of motion, and it also prevents the risk of injury, because if everything's all tight, then something else is more likely to snap. And you could end up having an injury on one thing, that recovers and that's back to normal, but because everything's so tight, something else could pull. You could pull another muscle, or you could have a massive misalignment that causes you back issues or whatever. Loads of things can be prevented by using something like this or a foam roller, relieving the tension in wherever it is and getting yourself back to where you were before. All right, so remember, RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. Okay, once the pain's gone, once the injury feels like it's healed, start regaining mobility. All right, mobilize it, get it moving. Next up, strengthen it. Okay, use elastics, use light weights. Remember, don't go crazy and start whacking on 100 kilos. Start with the light weights, build up the strength, get yourself back to prime condition. All right, I'm tripping all over my words here today. Get yourself back to prime condition. All right, as you're strengthening, you want to release the tension. Use the ball, use the foam roller. If you can afford a massage, get one. They're even better, but they cost a fortune. So, or if you've got a mate that's nice to you, or a missus, or a fella, whatever your game is. But carry on. Right, this is what you need to do. Stick to my advice, but remember, most importantly, speak to your doctor first. All right, don't just be a junkie like me and just go on the internet and say, oh, I must have this, so I'll do this. This is how people figure out they're dying, when they've got a little spot on their head. Okay? Google is great, but it can lead you down the wrong path. Okay? Alright, nice one, guys. I hope this has been useful to you. I hope you've been enjoying my videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave me all your comments, questions, whatever you want to know, anything you want to ask, any other issues, anything you want me to discuss, let me know, all right, in the comments. Next episode, we're going to talk about training while you are injured. All right, that's one I've had to think about quite a lot this last few weeks. All right, take it easy, guys. Keep it ninja. Good to see you. See you soon.